Ranger in Time, Disaster on the Titanic. Chapter 5, Danger on Deck. For the next 2 days, Ranger followed Patrick around the ship as it surged through the waves. The men from the shipyard who had come along on the maiden voyage helped with whatever needed to be done, assisting first-class passengers, peeling potatoes, delivering messages. Whenever he had a moment, Patrick went down to the third-class cabins to visit his new friends, Hamad and Miriam. The people from their village welcomed him and Ranger with figs from their trees back home. Most didn't speak English, but those who did told Patrick how they traveled on donkeys to Beirut, sailed from there to Marsville, and then taken a train to Cherbourg to board the big ship. Patrick told them how he had helped build the Titanic back in Belfast, piece by piece, from her propeller to the funnels that towered over the deck. "But would you like to know a secret?" Patrick said. "Only 3 of the 4 funnels are connected to the boilers. The 4th is just for show, to make the ship look more powerful." "Isn't the ship powerful enough?" Hamad asked. "She certainly is," Patrick said. "There's talk we could set a new speed record to New York." At the end of each night, Patrick went back to the crew's sleeping quarters. He kept the pouch with his father's 2 shiny pennies under his pillow. How proud his father would be if he could see Patrick now. "That's my boy," he'd say, "sailing clear across the wide ocean so you can care for your mother when you get home." Ranger curled up at the foot of Patrick's bunk at night and let the hum of the ship lull him to sleep. Even though Ranger didn't usually like boats, this big one was different. Strong and steady, and not at all tippy. Still, Ranger dreamed of his dog bed in the mudroom. He dreamed of squirrels and bacon and Luke and Sadie, and when he'd get to go home. On Sunday, April 14th, Patrick was called to help serve dinner in the first-class dining room. There were oysters and poached salmon, duckling, and lamb and beef. Dessert was a spread of pudding, ice cream, and eclairs. Ranger wasn't allowed in the dining room, so he climbed the stairs to the top of the ship and wandered the boat deck while Patrick was busy with dinner. One of the little yappy dogs always barked at Ranger, but most of the passengers were happy to see him. The lady strolling on deck would pause and bend down to pat his head. "Miriam," someone shouted just as Ranger was getting his neck scratched by a lady in a fluffy black hat. Ranger turned and saw Hamad hurrying along the deck with a little rag doll. "Miriam," Hamad called, looking around. When he saw Ranger, he ran to him and dropped to his knees. "I can't find my sister," he said. "Find?" Ranger's ears perked up. He sniffed the little doll in Hamad's hands, smelled of the third-class cabins, like smoke and spices. But there was another smell, too. The Miriam girl. She's wandered off. Can you help me find her? The boy asked. Find. Ranger knew that command from his search and rescue training. He'd always been able to find Luke in their practice sessions. He'd find him hiding in the woods on hot summer days and buried in the snow on winter mornings. He'd practiced finding Luke in wide-open meadows and on busy city blocks, but he'd never found anyone on a ship before. Ranger sniffed the air. There were lots of people smells here. First-class men and women were rushing back to their cabins. They smelled of soap and perfume and the greasy meat they'd eaten for supper. Another smell hung over the boat deck, too. Ranger tipped his nose to the dark sky and sniffed the brisk, icy air. It smelled cold and fishy and sharp, but there was no Miriam smell. Ranger led Hamad to the back of the boat and looked down to the deck below, where third-class passengers could walk in the open air at the boat's stern. It was late and the sky was dark. The night air was too cold for stargazing. All the passengers had gone to their cabins. The deck was empty. She's not here. I'm going to find help, Hamad said as he turned and walked away. Just as Ranger was about to follow him, he caught a scent on the wind, but then it was gone. Ranger walked all along the railing. He kept sniffing the cold air, searching for the Miriam smell. Finally, there! Ranger looked down at the empty deck. There were no people, only a big crane that the crew used to move baggage sometimes. Earlier, some of the boys from third class had been climbing in it, shimmying out its long arm and then dropping down to the deck. They'd raced around, playing and climbing until their fathers made them stop. But the boys were gone now, and Miriam was nowhere to be found. Every time Ranger caught her scent, it disappeared again. The smell was too scattered for him to follow. Where was she? Ranger sniffed the air and barked. Then he heard a high, scared voice. Help